Alright, so I was asked to make a video on like making your own program. So I've given a couple examples of how you program a specific action, specific thing. We're going to go over just some of the general functions. So if a is equal to 8. So the if command is going to run some command down here. A plus 6 store x. Alright, so what this command is going to do is going to check if a is equal to 8, and if a is in fact equal to 8, whatever the next line is, it's going to run it, and it'll run it. It will not run it if a is not equal to 8. Okay, if you want two things to be true, and b is equal to 6, right? You can have an and here, which will check if this is true, and this is true, right? And then the entire thing is true. If just one of them is true and not the other, it's not going to be true, and it's not going to run this next line. And I can do the specifics of what that means and binary and whatever, doesn't matter. The alternative to and is or, and or is this one or this one, or both. And you can get the complicated not or, not and, whatever. But and is both have to be true, and or is one or the other have to be true. If both of them are true, it's still true. And if it's true, then it'll run this next line. If you have another line down here, x plus 10 store x, this line's going to run no matter what. This line will only run if this is true. Okay, what if you want to run both of them if this is true? Just for simplicity's sake, so then you can use then, which is here. Nope, not there. Here. So what then does is it opens a chapter, let's say, and it will keep running all of these commands here and here and here and here until either A, the program runs out, like there's no more programming to do, or you type end. So you can run 100 commands as long as you have if and then the qualifiers met, then you have a then command, and then you have all your commands, and then you have an end. So that's how you do if is here, then it's this, and then your end, which is also down here. Cool. Else. Oh, probably should have waited. So you have an if, you have a then else. So it's if a is equal to 10, or z is equal to 10, I guess, then, and you're going to have z plus 10, nope, store, whatever, store, we'll say that's our store, z, right? And let's say you want it to run some commands even if and only if z is not equal to 10. And you could have any qualifier here. It can be greater than, less than, really, those are the only ones you really have, is equal to, not equal to, yeah, unequal, I guess, not equal. Anyway, so this else command is only going to be run if this is not true. So you can think about it as if you have a then and you have an else, it's only going to run the then, or only going to run the else. It's not going to run both. So you can say z minus 10 store 10, or store z, right? And then you still have to have your end, and you don't have to have an end here because your else is acting as your end, and then your end will close off the loop, right? So if you want the entire thing to be read instead of just the if then end and then else and then end, there's no if statement here, so it's just going to see the else as a standalone, and it's going to throw an error. So that's how you use your if then else. For, I'll touch on the for, and then I'll do some of the other stuff in a different video. So a for loop, you can actually see it. You can go to your catalog in your computer, or you can look down here, and it'll tell you kind of what it does. You have your start, you have your end, and then you have your increment. So X is your variable, S is your start, E is your end, and I is your increment. So the variable is the thing that's going to be changing, right? And we'll get to what that means here in a bit. But that's the thing that's going to be counting through. Your start is where you're going to be starting at. So 1 will be your start, 2 will be your start. You can set that. And then the second one's going to be your end. So if you want it to count through, if you want it to count through 1 through 10, so you'd have 1 as your start, you'd have 10 as your end, and then it would count as the X 1 through 10, right? And so what it would actually do is, imagine the X stuff isn't there, but it would have X plus 1 store X, right? And so what this would do is it would run X as 1, and then, actually this would be a bad idea, so let's do this. Do X, we'll store A actually, yeah. So it'll take X as 1, because that's your start is 1, and the variable that's being changed is X, so this is going to be 1. It's going to add 1 to 1, it's going to give you 2, and you just store that as A. And then it'll count your increment, which is the amount you're changing. It'll add the increment to the start, so you'll be at 2, and then it'll store 2 as X. So then you'll have X is equal to 2. Okay, so it'll be 2 plus 1 gives you 3, and then 3 is going to store that as A. So really, if you're trying to do it, you could do it like that. That'd probably be better, because then it'll make this the first loop around, it'll make this 1. The second loop, it'll add 1 to 2, it'll give you 3, and then so on and so forth. So you'll actually get a progression. It'll keep going up. And you can kind of get the feel of what for loops can be used for once you understand how they work. Sweet. So just as a quick recap, and we'll call it quits for now, is you have your X variable, which is the thing that's being counted. So that every time you see an X, and you can have multiple X's, right? X divided by B store L, right? And every time it'll read in this line as X is equal to 1, this line as X is equal to 1, and then when you have your end, use an end again here too, it will then it'll run every command between the for loop and the end as many times as it takes to get the start up to the end, right? By the increment, right? So if your increment's 5 and your start's 10 and your end is 20, it'll run the entire loop twice, because it'll go 10, it'll add 5, it'll give you 15, it'll run it once, and then it'll again do the increment, it'll be at 20, it'll run it again, and then it'll be actually I think it'll run the start too, so I think it'll run it 3 times. But I encourage you to play around with these things. As long as you have your end, it'll run correctly. If it doesn't, it'll just throw you an error and tell you you're doing it wrong. You can set your end as less than your start, as long as your increment is negative, because otherwise it'll just start and end because it's already above the end. So this increment is naturally 1. You don't have to write it, but your start and your end and your variable all have to be written. The increment's just originally 1, not negative 1, and you can change that to whatever you want. That's pretty much it for all of those things. Got if, then, else. We talked about and, or. We talked about end. We talked about for, and I'll touch on some of the other ones. But that's the basic kind of logic stuff. So if you want to start programming your own things, those are what those commands actually do. Don't forget to like, subscribe, all the good stuff down below. If you have any video suggestions, things you're working on in class that you don't understand, you want programs made, I'll hopefully be coming out with a matrices video here pretty soon. So look forward to that, and I'll see you guys in the next one.